is just to keep a close eye on the pills and see if there are ones that are worse than say the others, and if so, why? Because we don't, I think we don't actually know which pills are actually the worst. You hear things like it's the short half-life of the pills, but this isn't the whole answer. We don't know why it's harder, usually for women than men. It seems usually that women are more likely to get hooked to these pills than men, and we just don't know why. I think what we need is all of the people who do end up on the pills need to work with those who actually hand the pills out to try, well, to concede that there is a problem, and having conceded that there could be a problem, then we need to look at, well, within the problems people have, which are the drugs that actually are more likely to cause these problems, and what can conceivably be done to get people off. Yeah, just to add to this point, one more quick thing. There is an issue that has come up, and it actually came up from you at the end of the previous session, which was, why don't we do things like try to skill people up to handle, say, the problems that they have? We oughtn't to be handing out the pills quite as easily as we do. Part of the reason we know there's a problem with the pills goes way beyond that, in the sense that an awful lot of the problems are, a huge proportion of people who end up hooked to these pills are people who don't have mental health problems at all. Yeah. They're put on the SSRIs for post-menopausal flushes, things like that. They aren't told that there could be risks. They end up, then finding that they aren't able to halt. So there are huge issues here that need to be teased out.
Adam, did you want to come up?
Just really quickly, because you said, can people go on to live good lives after psychiatric drugs? Simply yes, you know. That is the case, you know, but it is a hard process to go through. You know, there's a lot of work involved, and
is this after coming off them?
Yeah, and while you're coming off them, I think that, you know, if you take the view that these drugs suppress a lot of what you're experiencing, then you have to find a way to deal with that. You know, an alternate way to deal with that as well. But if you can do that, yes, you can live successfully. We've seen people do it.
Yeah,
so
yes. I have as well.
We're almost talking like these drugs, is there like something like heroin or something like that? It seems to me that we're talking about coming off these drugs is actually as big a problem as people coming off heroin. This shouldn't be. This should not be in our system. Our system is obviously completely needing an overhaul, as far as I'm concerned. We need a lot more support groups, just like you're running. We need a lot more support. People, I think the mental health service is quite aware of this now, really, that people need support coming off these drugs. People need support groups. They need,
I don't think the mental health system is aware. I think
well,
if
getting
you go back,
close. Otherwise, people like this wouldn't be able to work within it. You know.
But there's extremely few people like this.
Yes.
If you go back and have a look at where things were in the 80s, when we sort of had actually recognised that you could have a problem trying to come off, say, the benzodiazepines, within a reasonably brief period of time, most mental health services had groups to help people come off the benzodiazepines. We don't have that for the antidepressants.
You don't.
You know, so we're actually in a much worse position than we were as regards the benzodiazepines.
Just a forum, but I don't know if there's anything else generally.
Just quickly, I think you have raised a point that's actually hugely important, which is that I get faced with a huge number of people who have been on pills for years, okay, and the problem that they had to begin with that led to them being put on the pills was often quite minor. What's awfully hard actually to explain to people later is you may not have had much of a problem to begin with, you may not have needed to be on these pills, but you do have a problem now. The pills have caused an imbalance, and it's not clear what's going to happen when we try to halt them. It could be that even if you didn't need to be on the pills when you put on them first, that you have to be on them now, because, you know, we just aren't going to be able to get you off them. So this can be awfully tricky.
And this man next, yeah?
First of all, don't know. My name's Peter Payne. I'm a service user. I also run a couple of self-help groups. I suffered depression for many years, 30 plus years, and didn't take any medication, and then finally, 6 months depression, and then a couple of weeks I felt okay, and I thought, no, I'm going to go to my GP and get the happy pill. Wanted Prozac, but he put me on a tricyclic. But so I got to the stage where I was going through all these alternative therapies as well. So I tried all these things that you're suggesting, and in fact, I'm against SSRIs that I'm on now because I'm trying to come off one, which is very difficult. But in fact, you get to a stage where I think the drugs do help some people. In an emergency situation. I wasn't suicidal, but so I've got this ambivalent feeling about medication. I'm on venlafaxine now, trying to get off venlafaxine, which is very difficult. Now, also there's a question that I want to raise about the information leaflets that you get in the packs of drugs when you get them. They're so vague. It's almost like if you have a survey done on your house, when you get a 10-page copy of this survey, it's ridiculous because it doesn't really, look at the structure of the house or any of this, the roof or anything like that. So they cover themselves. Basically, the drug companies cover themselves. Most of the drugs that you take for depression, SSRIs or antipsychotics, say do not take alcohol, or it's advised not to take alcohol, don't drive, things like that. Now, most people I know who take these drugs just ignore them. Okay, perhaps some of them will drink excessively, some not. Now, I didn't know of these things about how they interact with the liver. So the information leaflet doesn't go into the detail that's actually, is honest about how toxic these drugs are. With the drug I'm coming off now, I went to my psychiatrist 3 weeks ago. He said, I'll take you off venlafaxine. It's an SSRI, you're bipolar, that can push you into a hypomanic state, you're on mood stabilizers, that should be enough. Now, I said, I've read on the internet that this particular SNRI, actually it's not SSRI, is very, very difficult to come off. It's not, the information is not given in the leaflet. I think Wyeth have actually been forced to mention the discontinuation syndrome, that they call it, rather than coming off. And my psychiatrist said, we'll drop your dose by half and then stop it completely. And I said, well, hang on, if I miss one dose, I have these really weird side effects, splitting headaches, nausea, dizziness, intestinal problems, electric shock type, brain zaps that most of the people describe them as. Now that's just stopping one dose. Now you're telling me to come off this drug after 2 weeks of half a dose. Now, third week, this fourth week in, that half dose is not enough. I'm still suffering these withdrawal symptoms. So luckily I had a supply of the original dose, which I've gone back onto now. Mm-hmm. Now, the information I get from friends in support groups, they say, well, no, try, get your psychiatrist to put you onto a less, toxic drug, another antidepressant, and then wean yourself off the venlafaxine, and then you're on the other one, but you can come off that one without the side effects that you get from venlafaxine. Now, little things like that, the psychiatrist should have, maybe they don't read the internet, they don't read these sites where, people, post on e-community sites.
Withdrawal from the benzodiazepines didn't really get described good and proper till probably the 1970s. Withdrawal from the antidepressants was described, I'm aware of, first in 1961. And people said, look, you need to pay heed to this because A, there's withdrawal syndrome, which can be a problem, and B, it means that the people who use the drugs to treat people who are depressed may overestimate how well the drugs are actually doing, because they put you on the drugs, you appear to improve, they halt the drugs and you get worse again, and they think, oh, this drug is really good, it really helps control things. With the benzodiazepines, we have since the late 80s, all kind of the information leaflets that you would get if you were put on them do give a withdrawal protocol. It's clear in them, you know, that drugs do cause problems. People are highly scared of them. Here are the things you can do. As regards the antidepressants, 46 years later or more, we still, in the patient leaflets, in the BNF, there isn't any hint that here is the way to withdraw, that there could be, well, there's a hint, but that's all. But there aren't, you know, the kind of, there aren't the kind of protocols we have, say, for trying to get off the benzodiazepines. There isn't any concession at all that there may be people who just won't be able to get off. And I don't know why, Pam.
No.
I think in the case of the benzodiazepines, there was a big fuss from people like you, people out in the street. There hasn't been the same fuss as regards the antidepressants, and that's probably the, you know,
I don't know
the
why
biggest
that is.
single factor.
I mean, if for the gentleman at the back, if we do have protocols for coming off the drugs. I've written a book which contains those protocols. I have got a few copies with me, so if you're interested, that may be of use. I've also got leaflets from my organisation, so you can contact us at a later stage. But as David says, that to me is also, I also find that quite amazing. I mean, I took part recently in an inquiry with the government, which we're waiting for a report to be published probably in December. Certainly the point which one of the main points which I got over at that was largely what David was saying. Why is this not being dealt with? Why are people committing suicide because these drugs are not being properly monitored? And why is there no help available for those who have become addicted? Let's not mess about with words. To all intents and purposes, that's what it is. And there seems to be a total closed shop on this. Nobody's admitting to this. So we hope very much that when that report is published, there may be, and the people who are involved in that lead me to believe that something more is going to be said and there may be something done about it, but we can only wait and see.
David, back in 2003, you wrote a paper, you wrote those papers, I know, where you spoke about drug companies not being required to show that SSRIs cause dependency. Is that still so today in 2008?
Yeah, just what the antidepressants cause is unclear. It isn't the same kind of thing as getting hooked to the opiates. What the pharmaceutical companies do is when they bring new drugs to the market, they screen the drugs to see could they do the kinds of things that opiates do. Could you get hooked to this new drug in the way you would get hooked to an opiate?
Yeah.
They don't screen for the kinds of problems that the antidepressants or the antipsychotics cause. They just don't screen for that at all.
Why is that? Because surely,
To some extent because we don't recognize still that there is a problem and that it's not just the usual old-style opiate problem. People just don't recognize that this is an extremely different beast in ways worse than being hooked to an opiate.
I mean, it suits the pharmaceutical companies not to do this because then people have to take the drugs, don't they, become dependent on them. So it doesn't suit their interests, their financial interest, to go down that research line. So
Yeah.
who would do it?
It's awfully hard to know who would do it, apart from the people who are on the drugs who have an interest to say, well, look, you know, I just can't get off these things, and perhaps through the media to actually make more people who could be put on the drugs aware that there is an issue here.